Wabash, the gentleman's rule. You gotta believe in that stuff. Wabash always fight.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Don Morel Show, your chance to hear the thoughts and comments of the head football coach of the Little Giant program. And Coach, coming off of a win last week, first of all, just a tremendous defensive effort by the Little Giant team. We're going to see on the highlights here in just a minute. 5 stops on 4th down, including a key stop late in the game with Ohio Wesleyan 22 yards away from being able to tie up the game. Your defense was just tremendous all day Saturday.
Saved us, really did. Defense played phenomenally well. Jeff Ramsey came up with a great game plan. All those defensive coaches, Jeff Franklin, Brian Watson, Joe Reardon, did a super job, and we needed it. Obviously, we played poorly. Poorly's being nice on offense, and then just had some horrible special team events as we've dealt with all season. But we did win the game. OU, we knew going into the game, was good on defense. They proved it. They are good on defense. And then certainly highlighted the flaws we have on offense.
Let's take a look at some of those highlights from the game. You did get a 7-0 victory over Ohio Wesleyan, a 6-yard touchdown pass from Jake Reed to Matt Panola, and that was really a solid drive for the Little Giants. It was your second offensive drive of the game. You moved 58 yards in 8 plays, took 3 minutes, 52 seconds. It was really just a classic way drive. We're going to see the big pass reception here by Ivan Martinez, the tight end, who really set up Matt Panola's touchdown. What was it about Ohio Wesleyan that you were able to get some drives early, but really it just became a defensive slugfest for the second, third, and fourth quarters of that game for both teams?
Well, offensively, we kept we get a procedure penalty on 1st down. That happened 3 times where we're 1st and 15, and we're just not. No team's going to be good on 1st and 15. And then if the quarterback wasn't making a mistake, the wide receivers were, or the offensive line was, or the tight end was, or we just took turns really, and I called the plays. I called some horrible plays. Just a really frustrating Saturday as we're kind of trying to find out who we are on offense right now.
You talk about the struggles on offense, really for both teams. Wabash with 131 yards rushing in the game, 83 yards for Ohio Wesleyan is what you held them to. Little Giants threw for 115 yards. Ohio Wesleyan went to the air a little bit through the second half of the game, ended up with 132 yards passing offense. So neither team got over 250 in terms of total offense for the day. The big number for me, obviously, was the 0 of 5 on 4th down conversion attempts. Your defense just really, particularly I think back to that final offensive drive for Ohio Wesleyan. You had the bobbled snap on the punt, gave the ball to the Bishops on the Wabash 22-yard line. And on 4 consecutive plays, your front line got after the quarterback, and the defensive backs, we saw the Jose Franco interception. He forced the only turnover of the game for the Wabash defense. But your DBs were just in the pockets of those receivers on every play to force that 4 and out for Ohio Wesleyan.
All true. You know, we look back, and last year's game with OU was a defensive struggle. We did not score a touchdown against them last year on offense. So I don't know, bad matchup. They do a good job, whatever you want to call it. But we need to improve on offense. That's it. And we cannot have the critical mistakes in special teams.
You mentioned some critical mistakes. You had a couple of penalties that were costly on one of the Wabash turnovers. You uncharacteristically had a couple of turnovers in the game in some key opportune moments. And then you talk about the special teams. It was really on Saturday, unusually, it was the punting game that kind of left a little lacking in terms of special teams, and that's something that's been fairly solid all season long.
Well, you know, actually, we've had a bunch of punts blocked. We've bobbled snaps, and we are, you know, it's embarrassing enough just dealing with what we dealt with Saturday. We're going to spend probably 20 minutes today in practice trying to fix our punt team. I've said this. I feel like we're the worst 5-1 team in the country, but we're going to get it fixed. Also on the turnover, where there were 2 personal foul penalties, I think there should have been 5 personal foul penalties on that play, but I don't comment on the officiating.
One guy on special teams I do want to point out did a phenomenal job on Saturday. That was Kyle Stroh. Had a great punt return. Didn't make the highlight package, and that's my fault, Kyle, but it was a tremendous return. Kyle is actually the leader in the North Coast Athletic Conference, and he is among the top 50 in the nation in punt return average for the season, averaging 9 yards a return, and he really broke a nice return that set you up in good field position on Saturday.
He did, and that's something from last year where we couldn't catch a punt. This year we've improved greatly there, but we've traded that out for not being very good with the punt team.
Well, the good news is, much like after the loss against Denison, the good news after the 7-0 win against Ohio Wesleyan, you've got another opponent coming to town. You're back at home. You face an Oberlin team that has really played well. They were up 14-0 over the College of Worcester last week. Just looked like they kind of ran out of steam. They don't have a big roster. Ended up losing that game by 7 points, but had tied it in the fourth quarter until giving up a final touchdown late in the game. They had a chance to get a win at home against DePaul, a snap over the punter's head out of the back of the end zone for a safety, ended up being the difference in that ball game. This is a talented Oberlin football team, particularly on offense, with a great quarterback and 2 very good receivers that'll really give you a good test Saturday.
They will. We're going to have to play our best game to win, and again, that's not a cliche. We have to. Last week we needed to. We didn't play our best on offense, but the defense carried us. We need to find out who we are on offense, and then not give Oberlin is a dangerous football team. They had a great opportunity to beat DePaul. Worcester scored in the last 7 seconds to beat them. So, no, it's a dangerous group.
They're a team that can strike quickly. We saw that last year. They jumped out to a 14-7 lead over us in the game at Oberlin. And it was Zach Taylor, the quarterback, that did the majority of the damage. He threw for 2 touchdowns, ran for another score. What makes him such a dangerous player, and what do you have to do to try and keep him in check Saturday?
Well, he's like so many quarterbacks in our conference. He's mobile, he's very fast, has a great feel for who they are on offense, loves to throw the post. I mean, like no quarterback I've ever seen in my life, he throws the post. And they catch it. So that's been consistent all year. They really hurt Denison in the passing game. They scored 28 points against Denison. We could barely score against those guys. So as I mentioned earlier, this is a dangerous team.
Well, you mentioned 2 dangerous receivers. Both are seniors, so experienced as well. Ryan Gleason, who leads the North Coast Athletic Conference in receiving yards per game. Jabari Clemens, another senior wide receiver, is 5th in the conference in receiving yards. So when you've got a good quarterback and then you have those 2 dangerous receivers, you've got a defensive backfield that's really done a good job against some dangerous receivers this year. Does that provide some confidence going in, knowing you've seen some good receivers?
It does, and I think our group, DBs, will do a great job. Artie, Jose Franco, Jake Page, they've all played well, Patrick Kelly. It's a good secondary, and they know just every week they're going to get challenged.
One of the other positives coming out of the Ohio Wesleyan game, no sacks allowed by the offensive line. Your offensive line is among the leaders in all of Division III in fewest tackles for loss and sacks allowed. When you know you've got that type of protection to not only try and gain yards on every play in the running game and then keep your quarterback Jake Reed upright to try and get the passing game going, Does that allow you to do a few more things on offense, or does that just allow you to keep the basics in place because you know you'll get that good protection from your O-line?
Well, we've got to do more on offense, clearly, because we're not scoring any points. But it gives us confidence that we can drop back and sit in the pocket and throw it when we need to. What we can't do is get behind the chain. It can't be 1st and 15 or 2nd and 12 or 3rd and 11. I don't think any team is going to be good functioning in that environment.
You've been on the road the last 2 weeks. How important is it to get back home this week? You'll have a family day crowd, should be a good group. It's a big recruiting weekend for Wabash. Will that be an advantage to the guys to finally be back playing in front of their home fans?
I think it will, and it's been a weird year where you feel like we really haven't played any home games. I know we've got a bunch at the end, but it's good to be home. I think the kids are getting tired of getting on the bus, and we do play better at home. You
are still in the race for the conference championship. Wittenberg, of course, leads the way with a 6-0 mark. We're 5-1. Denison, 4-1 in the conference. Denison is 4-1 in the conference. I mean, those, we talked about it a little bit last week. Those goals are still achievable. Does that still become a focus of this team, or is this team more focused on just what Oberlin is doing? We're going to let the record take care of itself. Right now, we've got to get, as you mentioned, great game by the defense last week, but the offense trying to get itself back in gear. Is that the number one focus of this team, and they'll worry about the numbers and the records and where we fall in the conference standings when that comes to the end of the season?
Yeah, we just think the conference has become so competitive. You cannot look 2 games ahead. It's Oberlin and strictly Oberlin. I'm reminded of my first season in 2012 at Wabash when Oberlin brought 35 guys off the bus and they beat us and actually knocked us out of the conference championship with that loss. So that team in 2012 or this team in 2018 is not good enough to look ahead.
Kickoff is at 1 o'clock on Saturday. We'll tell you more about that in just a minute. What are the big keys this weekend? I mean, we've talked a little bit about it, but what are the most important things to watch for the fans in the stands and watching on the broadcast to know that this team's playing the way you want them to play?
Consistency on offense, number 1. Penalty-free, mistake-free, and special teams, number 2. Those are the 2 big issues we're dealing with right now.
Again, kickoff on Saturday will be at 1 o'clock at Hallett Little Giant Stadium. Ticket information is available at wabashtickets.com. Jim Amadon, Steve Hoffman, they'll have the call for you beginning at about 12:40 with this show, the Don Morel Show, for the pregame, followed by Steve and Jim getting you all set for that 1 o'clock kickoff. The Wabash Live broadcast crew will give you all those great camera angles and replay and everything involved with the Wabash College broadcast for all of our home games. A lot of activity on campus that day. Swimming begins with the Division III championships at the class of 1950 natatorium. Will Bernhardt, the new head coach of the Wabash swimming program, has his Little Giants at home for the first time this year. That's at 10 o'clock. We invite you to come out for that. The Wabash College soccer team will be taking on Oberlin. That game begins at noon. It will be senior day for the Little Giant soccer team, so come out early. Watch a little bit of swimming at 10 o'clock. You can go over to soccer at noon and then come over to the football stadium at 1 o'clock for football, or stay and enjoy the sport of your choice as a big busy day on the Wabash College campus. And of course, Monon Bell tickets are on sale. That game coming up in just a few weeks, November 10th at Hallett Little Giant Stadium. The RV spots are now sold out. There are still just a few parking spots remaining, and there are still tickets available. You can purchase those at wabashtickets.com. Tickets are $25 a piece, $35 for the super ticket. Parking information is also available on wabashtickets.com. So make sure you have your seat for the 125th Monon Bell Classic presented by Cancer Treatment Centers of America, November 10th here at Hallett Little Giant Stadium. Coach, until that time, best of luck this Saturday against Oberlin, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thank you.
You've been watching the Don Morel Show, your chance to hear the thoughts and comments of the head football coach of the Little Giant program, and we'll talk to you next week.
Wabash, the gentleman's rule. You gotta believe in that stuff. Wabash always fight.